My student became my roommate and then my F-buddy, MF. This is my account of something that happened a few years ago. It's mostly true except for some of the dialogue that I had to reconstruct to the best of my memory, contrary to what everyone else on here claims. No one is remembering exact dialogue years later, haha. Right out of college I got a job teaching high school. I was 22 years old and teaching kids who were 14 to 18. It was a great job. I love teaching and I'm pretty good at it. But I was advised early on to be very wary with female students. The small age gap between me and my students, coupled with the fact that I was single, could spell danger. Overall, I was professional with all my students. I had to be in order to get them to take a younger teacher seriously. As a human male, I couldn't help but notice if a girl was conventionally pretty, but I made it a point to never let my thoughts drift any further than that. Long story short, I taught high school for a few years, but like many people, I got sick of the administration, the politics, and the stress. I left teaching to go back to grad school. I got my master's and then decided to start a PhD. To my surprise, in my first year of my PhD program, Jenny, one of my former students, started going to the same school doing a master's. When I started teaching, she was a junior, so I knew her for 2 years before she graduated. She always struck me as reserved, but opinionated and confident. We were in the same department and ended up having a couple classes together. It was strange for her to talk to me and not call me Mr. N, but she quickly got over that and became fairly friendly with each other. We would meet up for lunch every now and then and I'd advise her on what courses to take and how to apply for PhD programs. The program I was in places a ton of emphasis on language acquisition as a means to further your research abilities. It's basically an expectation that you'll spend a summer or even a year overseas fully immersing yourself in language. The summer after my first year in the PhD program I decided to spend a couple months in Seville, particularly because my university has a close relationship with the university there and costs for housing would be significantly cheaper. I arrived in Seville and after a bit of trouble figuring it all out, found where I'd be staying. It was a small dorm building, just 3 floors, with each floor having a common area with a bathroom and kitchen surrounded by 6 small bedrooms. Because it was summer, the entire building was vacant when I got there, which was a bit of a relief. It was nice to have some quiet solitude to relax in. Those who have done grad school understand the importance of de-stressing. After a week, though, I woke up to the sound of one of the university administrators in the common area. She must have been showing a new student the dorms. I got dressed and poked my head out of my room and to my surprise, it was Jenny. The administrator was showing her and another woman I didn't recognize in the dorms. I jumped out to greet them, with Jenny apparently being as surprised as I was. Apparently she had plans to go to South America but they fell through and she ended up in Seville as well. As much as I appreciated the solitude, a friendly face in a foreign land is always a welcome sight. I had to go out to one of the library archives that day, but when I came back in the late afternoon, I found Jenny and the other girl, Grace, sitting in the common area drinking tea. I sat with them and chatted a bit before the 3 of us decided to go out and get a late evening dinner. While we were walking, Jenny began to joke about the 2 of them ruining the privacy I had for the previous week. "I guess you have to stop bringing women back to the dorm room every night now that you're not alone," she said with a teasing smile. That joke caught me off guard. Although we'd gotten to be pretty good friends over the course of the past year, our conversations never veered away from academia and research. "Yeah, you know me, a different girl every night," I joked back. Again, for those who have done grad school, you understand how the vast majority of us spend more time with books than we do with intimate partners. She didn't say anything else about it, but her broaching the topic stayed in my mind for a bit. I hadn't met anyone and certainly hadn't brought anyone back to the dorm in the week I've been here, but I had masturbated in the privacy of my room, and now I just have to be a bit more discreet about it. After the 3 of us ate and spent some time walking around the city center, we headed back to the dorm building. I changed into my pajama pants and undershirt to sleep in and headed out of my room to use the bathroom. Grace's door was closed, but Jenny was in the kitchen filling up a cup of water. She was wearing short cotton shorts and a tank top. To be honest, I'd never really thought of her sexually, but the sight in front of me was not unwelcome. I think she must have noticed my eyes wandering just a bit because she caught my eye and we both shared an awkward smile as I scooted past her on the way to the bathroom. The next morning I woke up to a message on the new group chat the 3 of us had made the night before to ease communication. Grace messaged to let us know that she headed out early to meet a friend of hers who lived nearby. I groggily rolled out of bed and went to the bathroom. By the time I was out, I saw Jenny in the kitchen making some coffee. She offered to make me some and I gladly accepted. We sat across from each other in the common area as we chatted. She was in the same tank top and shorts from last night, with her hair up in a ponytail. "So what are your plans for today?" she asked. "Well, I was going to bring a ton of women back to the dorm like I've been doing daily, but now that you guys are here, that's off the table," I replied sarcastically. She laughed heartily. "I know you're joking but I also wouldn't even be surprised." I laughed it off and ignored what she was implying. Maybe being away from school and home was causing her to be more carefree. I didn't mind, it was just a new side of her I wasn't used to. Over the next few days we settled into routines. We usually all met up for dinner and hung out until late at night. Mornings start late in Spain, which was a nice change. One morning I woke up and to be frank, was atrony. I hadn't masturbated since the girls had shown up. Although I locked my room door, I still felt uncomfortable with them being so close. But this morning I just had that undeniable urge. I started to touch myself, with cliché fantasies running through my head. But halfway through, I started to hear a faint sound. A light buzzing. I thought maybe it was something like an air conditioner, but that wasn't the sound the AC in this building makes. It took me a second, but I realized the sound was coming from directly on the other side of the wall. Jenny's room. I realized. She must be using a vibrator. She must not realize that the sound of it could barely be heard through the wall. I was simultaneously surprised and turned on. It didn't take me long to finish myself off, and I grabbed a towel to clean myself up. I got up and ran over to the shower while making sure the common area was empty. By the time I came out of the bathroom, I saw Jenny was now in the common area drinking coffee on the couch. "Hey, good morning, how's it going?" she asked. I was having trouble looking her in the eye, knowing what I heard earlier. "I'm all right. Are you having a good morning?" "Yup," she responded perkily. I don't know what got into me at this point. What I said next was so out of character for me that I'm still shocked I ever said it. "Yeah, I heard." I was standing in the doorway of my room and waited just long enough to close the door to see the look of understanding dawn on her face. I was freaked out that I had been inappropriate or creepy, so I waited in my room until I could tell she had left for the day. Part of me was proud for being bold in response to the teasing she had doled out earlier, and part of me was worried I was being a creepy older man. Later that evening the three of us met up for dinner again at a small restaurant down the street. There was a guitarist playing outside and the sound of his music filled the street. "I love the sound of Spanish guitar," Jenny said. "I'm sure you'd still be able to hear from the dorm, especially with how thin the walls apparently are," Grace replied with a smirk. Jenny shot her an embarrassed look and slapped her shoulder. "Okay." Apparently she had told Grace about what happened this morning. Grace simply laughed at her. "Oh, relax, it's normal." She turned to me. "If you ever hear any sounds from my room, just do your best to ignore it." Jenny and I broke out into laughter. Grace was more outgoing than either of us are, so it was nice to have someone break the ice and ease the tension I was worried about. When we got back to the dorms, it was late and we each headed straight to our rooms. I laid in bed, unable to sleep. I was undeniably turned on. I can't pretend like the two women I was sharing this space with weren't both SI. Although I had taken care of myself earlier in the day, I felt the urge again and began to touch myself. A few minutes later, I got a ding on my phone. It was Grace on the group chat. "Whichever of you is having some special time right now, please keep it down. Holy poop.